Chosen one, watch before your life changes. Important. Something is shifting in your life, and you can feel it, like the soft rumble before a storm, or the silence just before dawn breaks. This video carries a message not meant for everyone, but for those on the edge of something massive. If you're watching this right now, it's not by accident. There are no coincidences. Life has been aligning behind the scenes, moving in silence, preparing to show you things you were never supposed to miss. What you're about to hear is a wake-up call, a whisper from the future you're walking into, and it's urging you to stay awake, because the next chapter doesn't begin by chance. It begins with choice. Stay with me until the very end of this video. Write your warmest wish in the comments right now and include the number 777. This small action will not only send your intentions out into the universe, but it will also help energize the space we're in together. There's something powerful about collective energy, especially when it's filled with belief, clarity, and hope. This could be the moment everything shifts, not just because you want it, but because something deeper is finally ready to respond. Now, chosen one, like this video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and let's begin. You've been sensing it. Maybe it's been subtle. Repeating numbers, certain people leaving your life, strange dreams, or even moments of deep silence where time feels slower, almost paused. These are not glitches. They're signs, indicators that something within you is transforming. The world around you hasn't quite caught up yet, but it's about to. This is the space between who you've been and who you're becoming. And that space? It's sacred. Most people ignore it. They run from it. But you're watching this. You stayed. That means something. Life doesn't shout when it changes. It whispers. It places the right video, the right message, the right experience at the right time in your hands. This is one of those moments. Your past might have felt like a loop, cycles of trying, failing, doubting, repeating. But what if I told you those patterns are cracking right now? That nothing you've done was a waste, and no tear, no setback, no sleepless night was ever meaningless. There's a bigger design, a divine architecture behind it all, and right now, you're closer than ever to stepping into a life that doesn't just look different, but feels different. But with great change comes great resistance. That resistance might look like fear. It might look like loss. Sometimes it even shows up as silence, long periods where nothing seems to be happening. But don't mistake the quiet for absence. In reality, it's preparation. When things fall away, they aren't leaving to punish you. They're clearing space. You were never meant to carry so much. You were never meant to settle for what simply works. You were designed for impact, for depth, for purpose that echoes beyond the surface of your daily life. Right now, you may be carrying unanswered questions. Why me? Why now? Why is nothing working out the way I thought it would? But maybe the better question is, what if this is exactly how it's supposed to unfold? What if your delay was your protection? What if your heartbreak was the doorway to wisdom you would have never accessed otherwise? You've been broken open, but that breaking wasn't destruction. It was the beginning of your becoming. Think of the people who misunderstood you, rejected you, doubted you. Their role was necessary. Without them, you wouldn't have learned discernment. Without them, you might have spent your whole life trying to fit into a world that could never hold your fullness. Some of the greatest shifts come disguised as endings, relationships, jobs, friendships, even identities, all temporary scaffolding for the soul's real growth. Now, that scaffolding is falling away because you're ready. And because the real structure is rising, you're not supposed to feel ready. You're not supposed to have all the answers, but you are supposed to listen, to notice the messages hidden in plain sight. When the old begins to collapse, the ego screams. It wants to survive. It wants to cling to the known. But the soul rejoices. The soul understands that death is always followed by resurrection. The parts of you that are dissolving were never your true self. They were masks. They were lessons. And now they are being stripped so the light underneath can finally shine. There's something unusual about people who feel like outsiders. They don't chase what everyone else does. They see through things. They move with quiet depth. And though they often walk alone, their journey is anything but meaningless. If you felt isolated, out of place, or unseen, it's not because you're lacking. It's because you're carrying something rare. Not everyone can understand you, and they're not supposed to, because you're not here to blend in. You're here to awaken. You've survived storms you never talk about. You've carried burdens silently. You've wiped your own tears and kept going when it felt like no one saw you. That inner strength? That's your superpower. And while the world keeps looking for external validation, you've been quietly preparing for a deeper purpose. One that doesn't scream for attention, but changes everything it touches. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to stop doubting yourself. The pain you went through wasn't just for survival. It was preparation. Now, you'll begin to understand why you had to walk through those valleys. Now, the threads are coming together. The people you've lost. The timing that didn't make sense. The moves you had to make alone. Everything was leading here. The shift you're sensing isn't just emotional. It's spiritual. And once it begins, it cannot be reversed. That's why you're being asked to slow down, to observe, to listen. Because the next doors will require a calmer heart and a quieter mind. This isn't just another motivational speech. This isn't about hype or hustle. This is about alignment. About stepping into what has always been waiting for you the moment you finally released control. The moment you stopped fighting and started flowing. Life will not always make sense, but when it begins to align, you'll know, not in your head, but in your bones. You'll feel a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, a clarity that cuts through the noise, a knowing that can't be explained, only experienced. So many people chase the spotlight, never realizing the real transformation happens in the dark, in the silence, when no one is watching. That's where roots grow. That's where the real work begins. And you've been growing roots this whole time. That's why things looked still. That's why results felt delayed. Because you weren't being buried. You were being planted. And now, it's almost time to rise. But rising doesn't look like what you expect. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't announce itself. It looks like peace, like presence, like finally being okay with who you are. When you no longer need to prove yourself, the proving ends. When you no longer seek the world's permission, your power begins. It's not loud, but it's unstoppable. And it's what you're stepping into right now. You're not broken. You're being rebuilt. You're not lost. You're being redirected. And this redirection, it's sacred. Let it unfold. Let it teach you. Let it break you open in all the right ways. Because soon, you'll realize that nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the waiting, not even the confusion. All of it was working, quietly, faithfully, preparing the ground for the life you're about to step into. And the most important thing you can do right now is keep going. You've been walking through a world that feels familiar, but something about it is shifting under your feet. The spaces you used to find comfort in feel too small now. The conversations that once kept you company now feel like echoes from a different version of yourself. This isn't a sign that you're drifting. It's a sign that you're evolving. And that evolution isn't always graceful. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion. Sometimes it feels like confusion. But deep beneath it, a quiet power is forming, shaping something new. When you begin to outgrow the life you built in survival mode, it can feel like everything is falling apart. But in truth, it's falling into alignment. The chaos isn't punishment, it's transition. And transition is messy. It stirs up all the parts of us we've hidden, the fears, the habits, the expectations we inherited from others. It makes us question everything. That's part of the process. You're not supposed to have all the answers right now. You're supposed to trust the dismantling, even when it makes no sense. The old version of you, the one who tolerated too much, who dimmed their light to keep the peace, who waited for permission, is fading. You might feel guilty for letting go of people or roles that once defined you. But guilt is not a sign you're wrong. It's often a sign you're healing. And healing requires you to choose yourself, sometimes for the very first time. The people who truly see you won't leave. The ones who only loved your silence will. You were not born to shrink. You were not meant to live a life of compromise and quiet disappointment. But the world teaches us to trade authenticity for acceptance. It tells us that being liked is more important than being real. And so we perform, we adjust, we pretend. Until one day, the mask is too heavy, and the silence too loud. That's the moment change begins. That's the moment you wake up, not just physically, but spiritually. Your intuition has been whispering truths that your mind isn't ready to hear. You've ignored it before. You've reasoned your way back into comfort. But this time is different. This time, the pull is too strong. You can't go back, not truly. Because now, you've tasted the truth. And once you taste it, you can never fully unknow it. You might try to settle again. You might try to fit in. But your soul will rebel. It always does. Transformation isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a single decision, but a series of moments when you choose to align with your higher self, even when it costs you comfort. Especially then, because the cost of staying small is far greater than the risk of expansion. And that risk? That's where freedom lives. That's where the version of you who dreams louder, loves deeper, and lives fully is waiting. Don't rush this process. You're not behind. You're not too late. The timing of your awakening was never meant to match the world's calendar. You bloom when you're ready. And readiness doesn't come from pressure. It comes from surrender. You've tried forcing things before. You've tried controlling outcomes, attaching your worth to what works or doesn't. But that's not where your power lives. Your power is in your presence, in your honesty, in your ability to stay open, even when everything in you wants to shut down. What's coming will not ask you to be anyone but who you already are beneath the layers. The ones who are meant to walk with you won't ask you to shrink. They won't demand a version of you that feels like a performance. They'll see your soul. They'll feel your truth. And they'll rise with you, not out of obligation, but resonance. Because when you step into your authentic energy, you call in people and places that match your frequency, not your fear. There's a life waiting for you that feels like peace, like flow, like clarity. You may not see it yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. Seeds grow underground long before they break the surface. You've planted those seeds. Every moment you chose truth over comfort, alignment over approval, depth over surface. You were planting. And now the roots are strong. Now you can rise without fear of falling back into the old. Because you're not who you used to be. You've earned this. The world doesn't reward silence with change. It rewards courage. And courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move anyway. Even if your voice shakes. Even if you don't know where it's leading. If your heart tells you it's time, then it is. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait for the world to catch up. Start walking. You'll build the bridge as you move. You might be scared. That's okay. Fear is part of the journey. But don't let it make your choices. Fear wants safety. But your soul wants freedom. The two are rarely in the same direction. Choose your soul. Again and again. Even if it costs you temporary comfort. Even if it means losing people. Because every time you choose your truth, you get closer to the life that was always meant for you. You don't have to explain yourself to those who can't hear your frequency. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be you, fully, fearlessly. And that alone is a revolution. That alone changes everything. You are not a mistake. Your path is not random. Your longing for more is not a flaw. It's guidance. You're being shown what's possible. You're being called forward. And this time, you're listening. Stay grounded. Stay aware. Don't let the noise pull you off course. This is the time for clarity, for alignment, for remembering why you started this journey in the first place. You've come too far to dim now. You've shed too much to go back. Let the fire inside you burn brighter than the fear around you. Let your truth speak louder than your doubt. Because the world needs your voice, your presence, your light. Even when you feel unseen, you're still affecting everything around you. Your energy doesn't lie. It ripples. It touches. It transforms. Don't underestimate the impact of your healing. When you rise, others are inspired to rise too. Not because you tell them to, but because your very existence shows them what's possible. You become a mirror, a lighthouse, a reminder. And that's powerful. So take a breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Know that you're here, in this moment, for a reason. Not just to survive, but to thrive, to remember, to awaken. Everything is changing because you are. And the more you embrace that change, the more life will respond with doors you didn't know existed. Keep going. The next chapter is already waiting for you to turn the page. Change isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, almost invisible. It happens in those subtle moments, when you say no instead of yes, when you choose rest over proving your worth, when you stop answering calls that drain you. These are the shifts that don't get celebrated, but they matter. They add up. They shape you. They create a new reality without asking for applause, and eventually, the world around you catches up to what's already shifted within. But before that happens, there's usually a stretch of time that feels confusing. Like you're in between two worlds, the one you've outgrown and the one you haven't stepped into yet. That space is sacred. It's the cocoon before the wings form. It's uncomfortable, yes. You may feel lost or like nothing is happening. But trust this, in the stillness, everything is rearranging. The universe is listening even when it seems silent. Your energy is recalibrating. The life you're stepping into is being built on the choices you're making now. Quiet, consistent, intentional choices. There are moments when the old life will try to pull you back. Not because it's right, but because it's familiar. You'll be tempted to return to old patterns, to say yes when you mean no, to dim yourself just to keep the peace. But each time you resist that pull, you create a new future. Every moment of self-honesty is a thread in the fabric of the new reality forming around you. And though no one else may see that work, it's real. It's what makes the difference between repeating the past and breaking free from it. People may not understand what you're doing right now. They might think you've changed, and they'd be right. You're shedding. You're shifting. And transformation makes others uncomfortable, especially when it reflects the parts of them still trapped. Don't let their discomfort shrink you. Let it remind you that you're moving, that you're no longer stuck. You don't owe anyone the old version of you just to make them feel comfortable in their stagnation. Growth is lonely sometimes. You'll miss the version of you who didn't know better, because back then, things were simpler. But simpler isn't always better, and innocence isn't always freedom. Now you see through the illusions. Now you can't pretend. That's the price of awareness. And though it comes with ache, it also comes with power. Because now, you can choose. You're no longer driven by unconscious patterns. You're awake. And that awareness is everything. Let yourself grieve what's gone. The people who didn't stay. The life you had to leave behind. The dreams that didn't come true the way you imagined. That grief isn't weakness. It's release. And release creates space. That space is where the new enters. But it can only enter if you don't rush the process. If you don't numb it. If you sit with it long enough to understand what it's teaching you. Every ending holds a message, a gift, but only if you're willing to feel it. The hardest part of this journey is trusting what you can't see. You've been trained to believe only in what's visible, what's provable, what's logical. But your soul doesn't operate on that level. It speaks through energy, through nudges, through unshakable feelings you can't explain. The mind will resist. It wants facts, guarantees, formulas. But the truth you're being asked to follow now doesn't fit into boxes. It lives in the unseen, in the flow, in the surrender.